Live, and I'm excited. I feel like it's been a while since I decided to do a live session until I actually follow through with it. But this live is going to be special, it's going to be unique, and it's something that I really strive to do more often. I've been very, very busy in the past couple of weeks, just trying to build up my brand new community for Jewish people, for people who are interested in Judaism, for people who are interested in converting to Judaism. And that's called That Jewish Connection, where I try to connect people a bit more to Judaism and have this non religious platform where people could just be themselves and learn more and not be ashamed of that. So, without further ado, I'm going to start off and talk about today's topic, and it's breaking the silence. The Israeli organization that is supposedly fighting the uh, troubles that the IDF is doing, expressing what they did in the army. And I did get to talk about breaking the silence and B'Tselem organization a couple of times on my personal account on Instagram, my Israeli story. And it's hysterical that the fact that like every single Israeli who served in the army basically has an experience with that organization. And I feel like what's interesting about breaking the silence is that I have a personal connection with them, and a couple of my friends have a personal connection with them. And when I say I have a personal connection, I am talking about the fact that they have contacted me. So, Breaking the Silence is an Israeli organization that is basically what they're saying is that they're exposing the truth behind the army serve of the Israeli IDF. They share stories of people who served in the IDF, and what's interesting about them is that a huge part of their stories, definitely most of the stories that they're sharing, are lies, are based fake stories that are not related to the truth or don't have anything about it at all. As a person, I served in the Israeli Air Force. I drafted when Operation Protective Edge ended, and I experienced my army service as something that was very humane. We had many, many protocols that were meant to protect the lives of Palestinians who were living in the Gaza Strip, who were under the control of Hamas. We were aiming, to only not only hurt the people, but also like make their life a bit easier. Whether if it was like calling people before we were bombing areas that they were actually throwing rockets from at us. So when I got to explain about my service to people who are not Israelis, they actually were quite shocked because, in a sense, we were protecting the enemy, and that did not make any sense to them. And in a sense, it also felt unjust to me that my government, my country cares a lot about the enemy while people are getting hurt on the Israeli side. And I feel like a lot of the protocols are not only that they're like not protecting our soldiers, but they're actually hurting them. But I feel like as someone who served in the Israeli Air Force, I feel like this is probably the most humane experience I ever had. I am very lucky to be serving in the to have served in the Israeli Air Force. I am very lucky that I am on that side of history and how humane it is and how caring it is to the other side. So, approximately a couple of months after I finished my service in the Air Force, a guy from Breaking the Silence contacts me if he asks me if I want to, express what I experienced in the army. And when he heard that I actually had a very positive experience, that I was doing exactly what the IDF is telling people to do so, which is what happens 99% of the time, he was actually very, very upset. And he asked me to, put my words differently, and I was kind of shook. And like, he explained to me basically that we can talk about how the IDF hurts the Palestinians, although the opposite happened. So he clearly didn't care a lot about what was actually going on and of the story that he could tell. So I realized at that point that Breaking the Silence only cares about the money. But that is not what drove me crazy. What drove me crazy is one of my closest friends experienced. He served in, he was a combat soldier in the Golani Brigade, and he actually entered the Gaza Strip during Protective Edge, and he experienced the whole war and everything. And one of his friends, and I'm not going to mention his name, actually contacted Breaking the Silence because he wanted, in a sense, to get back at people. And he basically made up a story of what he went through in the Gaza Strip and how hard it was for him and how, unhumane this whole situation was for him. Except he forgot to mention one thing: the fact that he actually did not even enter the Gaza Strip, the fact that he broke his leg a couple of months before, so he couldn't participate in anything, and that he was actually home during that time. So that was the first time that I was actually like, shook that an Israeli organization, in a sense, is striving to end Israel. And the way that it does that is not by criticizing the IDF, that we could talk about and criticize and do that a lot. And I feel like it's important to criticize the IDF, but Breaking the Silence don't criticize the IDF. They're making up stories, they're creating lies about Israel and about the IDF that are not true. And the way that they're doing it is basically paying off to people. So I am going to put a short intro and we are going to be back and answer a bit more of your questions. But Breaking the Silence, if any person from that organization paying for people to spread lies about your countries isn't going to do anything other than putting more lies out there. Stop it. So, we're 8 minutes into my live, and I am excited again to talk to you guys all the way from Israel. I am currently in Rishon LeZion, trying to create a bit more content to you guys about it. Although I am at home working at presentations to pass on the live community, the first live in my community, that Jewish Connection, where Jewish people could connect a bit more to their personal heritage and learn more and connect and own that Jewish connection. And I'm excited about it. I feel like throughout this entire time, Jews have such a hard time, especially in the past 4 or 5 months, to just deal with everything. Anti Semitism is like, not only that it's on the rise, but it's already like 600 times worse than the way it used to be before April. And what was bad about this whole situation, that during last April, where Israelis were in shelters because Hamas was throwing rocket at them, is that Jews all across the world was dealing with this terrible amount of hate. And I'd call my American cousin and I'd joke with her, telling her like, I don't know who has it worse, because last April Israel was bombed, and I was airing my entire experience. It was pretty bad. I feel like we were also, this was the first time that we were also very scared, but like, this was the first time the Iron Dome hasn't performed that well, and that we could really feel like Hamas has stepped up and strived to kill the most amount of people it could, and it killed people, it killed little children, and it killed an old woman, and it killed innocent people, and people were dying fast, although that we had the Iron Dome, which was very shocking and very heartbreaking. And the part about it is that people were actually legitimizing Hamas and calling it a resistance. And this is still absurd to me till this very day, like how people are calling a convicted terror organization, a resistance. And it does not make any sense to me that, like, no matter what, people will always choose to stand up against Jews because they are Jews. And I don't see another explanation to that because it's clearly not criticism of Israel. It's clearly not supporting the weak. It's supporting terrorism and supporting hate. And that's something that my soul could never like comprehend. I cannot comprehend how people don't feel bad for children when they are hurt, or like actually happy when kids are hurt, because Israel and the IDF will always apologize when innocents are hurt, but Hamas or other terror organizations are actually happy. And not just that, they're like, they made their point. They completed their missions when innocent Israelis and children are hurt. And that's sick to me how till this very day people are presenting Hamas as nothing more than a resistance. They're basically ignoring everything, and people believe them. And I'm about to post a video today saying that at the end of the day, if you don't stop those people from spreading lies about Israel, about Jews, then don't be surprised if they don't. Because if people are spreading lies, people will be, seeing those lies on social media. Let's say Bella Hadid is posting a lie about how an old woman was arrested and how bad it is, then people are going to think that Israel arrested an old woman. But if we don't expose Bella Hadid and say, listen, this woman was actually a terrorist who tried to stab a soldier, there's footage, here it is, then no one's going to be aware of the fact, no one's going to be aware of the truth. And that's what I'm striving to do as badly as I'm striving. That's why I wrote a book about it. I wrote two books about it, like how you need to step up, how to do it, what's the truth, here's the lies, how to debunk them. Here's what's going on, how to debunk them. And if I don't stop and talk about this is what breaking the silence does, this is my personal experience with breaking the silence. There's hundreds of thousands of cases of breaking the silence that by Googling them or by searching, by really a short search, you could see that they're lies. No one's going to be aware of the fact that it's a lie if you're not going to call out the lie. And breaking the silence and Batselem is just a small point of it. There's also Haaretz, an Israeli newspaper who's spreading a lot of lies. Why are they doing it? I have no idea. Really, I genuinely have no idea what motivates them. And the fact that that's Israeli like organizations, that boils my blood. And not a lot could boil my blood, not a lot could, actually make me upset. But the fact that those newspapers, those organizations are Israelis, are coming from within us, that's heartbreaking. And they're spreading lies. It's clearly that's not the truth. It's clearly that's not the case of what's going on. Like, how can people still believe that Israel is performing a genocide on the Palestinians if the Palestinian population has multiplied by 5? Because if Israel's making a genocide, creating a genocide, killing, like slaughtering the Palestinians, how has the Palestinians multiplied by 5? Because when the Jews, for an example, in World War II, were facing a genocide, till this very day they couldn't recover their populations. And I, as a Jew, am like, I'm done. I'm not even upset at this point anymore. I'm done. I'm done with the lies. I'm like, I just can't even. I can't even deal with it. Except grabbing a mic and ranting and being upset on a YouTube live. So if no one's going to help me advocate for Israel, how are we going to be surprised where Israel's getting sanctions by Arab countries who are condemning Israel while they themselves violate human rights? The only country, the only democracy in the Middle East that actually respects people and treats people with respect is getting condemned by countries who slaughter their own people. That's absurd. And no one's calling them out. No one's actually like stopping for a second to think, wait, hold on, what's going on? And it's not a, this is a Republican, this is a left wing thing, this is a right wing thing. It's not it. It's about common sense. And I feel like common sense is just not common anymore. And it's frustrating. So, my message here at the end of the day is don't believe everything you see and stop and research and advocate for Israel. Do the work. My name is Gilly. I'm the CEO and founder of My Israeli Story and now That Jewish Connection. It was an honor to have you guys here on my live. I wish you all of the best. Goodbye.